So, hi friends, I am Engineer Venkatesh, Assistant Professor in Rovini College of Engineering and Technology at Kanyakumari District. Now, we are going to see a topic in remote sensing. So, the topic title is Energy Interaction with Earth Surface. So, the energy incident on the Earth surface is absorbed, transmitted, or reflected depending upon the wavelength and the characteristics of the surface, such as the features of surface may be bare soil, vegetation, or water body. So, according to these three surface, the energy interactions with the atmospheres will be makes an electromagnetic radiation. So, the incident electromagnetic energy may interact with the earth surface features in their three possible ways. One is according to this bare soil, vegetation, and water body. And the main possible ways of electromagnetic interactions in earth surface are reflection, absorption, and transmission. So after interaction with the Earth's surface, the energy that is reflected or re-emitted from the features in recorded at the sensors, and they are analyzed in the identify the target features. The distance of the objects are the main characteristics one. So energy interaction. The incident electromagnetic energy may interact with the Earth's surface features in three possible processes. So according to this, the three processes are not mutually exclusive. Then the electromagnetic radiations will be arise. So the energy incident on the surface may be partially reflected, absorbed, or transmitted. So the main process that it take place depends upon the following factor. So one is wavelength of radiation. Okay. Second one, angle at which the radiation interacts the surface. Third one, the composition and the physical properties of the surface. So according these three uh, process, the electromagnetic radiations will be arised in the earth surface. So by this the three possible way of electromagnetic radiation is reflection, absorption, and transmission. So, first process is reflection. Reflection is a process in which the incident energy is redirected in such a way that the angle of incident is equal to the angle of reflection. So, the reflected radiation leaves the surface at the same angle as it approaches. Scattering is a special type of reflection where in the incident energy is diffused many direction, and it's sometimes it is called diffused reflection. When electromagnetic energy is incident on the surface, it may get reflected or scattered depending upon the roughness of the surface. So relatively, the wavelength is incident energy if the roughness of the surface is less than the wavelength of the radiation, or the ratio of roughness of the wavelength is less than 1. So the radiation is refracted. When the ratio is more than 1, if the roughness is more than the wavelength, then it is called scattered. So this is the difference between reflected process and the scattered process. So here the fraction of energy that is reflected or scattered is in a unique for each material. This will aid in distinguish different features on images. Yeah, in a class denotes a distinguished primary characteristics or attributes of an image that has been classified to be represent the particles, land covers, types, spectral signatures. Within one future class, the proportion of energy reflected, emitted, or absorbed depends on the wavelength. Hence, the spectral range of the two factors may be indistinguishable. By this, reflected properties may be differ in another spectral band. In multiple spectral remote sensing process, the multiple sensors are used to record the reflectance from the surface features and the different wavelength bands, hence they differentiate in the target features. So the reflection from the surface occurs in two ways. So the energy reflection occurs in a surface depends on the wavelength of radiation, angle of incidence, and the composition of the physical properties of the surface. According to these three processes, the reflection from the surface occurs in two way. Okay. So the roughness of the target surface controls how the energy is reflected by the surface. Based on this roughness of the surface, the reflection may be occurs mainly in spectral reflection, and another one is diffused reflection. Diffused reflection is otherwise referred as Lombardian reflection. So first we are going to see the diffused reflection. So diffuse reflection is when the surface is smooth, we get a mirror like or smooth reflection, so where all the light signal incident energy is reflected in one direction. Okay, so this is called specular reflection and it gives the rise of images. So so it occurs when the surface is smooth and flat. A mirror like or smooth reflection is obtained when where the complete or nearly complete incident energy is reflected in one direction. The angle of reflection is equal to the angle of incidence. So reflection from the surface is the maximum along the angle of reflection wherein any other direction is negligible. So it is referred as the specular reflection. So next we are going to see the diffuse reflection. It is otherwise referred as Lombardian reflection. So when the surface is rough, the energy is reflected uniformly in almost in all directions. So this is referred as the diffuse reflection or otherwise referred as Lombardian reflection. So it does not give the rise in images. So that is, it occurs when the surface is rough. Okay. So the energy is reflected uniformly in all directions since all the wavelengths are reflected uniformly in all directions. So diffused reflection contains spectral information of the color of the reflecting surface. Hence, in remote sensing, diffuse reflectance properties of land terrain features are measured. Since the reflection is uniform in all directions, sensor locate in any directions record the same reflectance, and hence it is easy to differentiate the features. So next, absorption. Absorption is the other main mechanism at work when electromagnetic radiation interacts with the surface. The electromagnetic energy which is absorbed by the Earth's surface is available for emission and the thermal radiation as a longer wavelength. Absorption of electromagnetic radiation is the way where the energy of the photon is taken up by matter. Thus, the electromagnetic energy is transformed into internal energy of the absorber. The reduction of the intensity of light wave propagation through a medium by absorption of a part of its photons of its called attenuation effect. So usually absorption of wave does not depends on their intensity like a linear absorption. Although in certain conditions in ray optics, the medium changes its transparency dependently on the intensity of the wave going through it, and saturable absorption will be occurred. It is referred as non-linear absorption. So last effect is transmission process. The transmission occurs when the radiation is allowed to passes through the target. Depending upon the characteristics of the medium during transmission, the velocity and the wavelength of the radiation is changes, whereas the frequency remains the same. The transmitting energy may further get scattered or absorbed in the medium. Transmission is the process by which the incident radiation passes through the matter without measurable attenuation. The substance which is transferred to the radiations or transmission through the material in a media are different densities like air or water, which causes radiation to be reflected or deflected. So here two things will be happen. One is reflected or deflected from the straight line path with an accompanying changes in velocity and wavelength. So here the frequency is always remains constant.